Well, now that the second episode of season 2 is out, I can officially say that I'm done with The Last of Us.
What does this button do? Please, please, do not push the button. You have no idea what it...
Run time.
No! God, please, no! No!
Welcome back to Torn Apart, and today we're talking about something that gets me really angry. I'm gonna try to stay calm for as long as possible because we're talking about my favorite game ever, and this should be also my favorite adaptation ever, but it's really not, for a lot of different reasons. I think there is another video that I made about this topic, like the first episode, the pilot of Last of Us Season 1, where of course I was a bit skeptical, but I could tell that HBO definitely put an interesting creative spin into the adaptation of Last of Us. The creative team was there, the writing team was there, the performers were there as well. And I'm saying this basically saying that all the puzzle pieces fit together quite well, but there was something that was not clicking. There was something that was not perfect, and there was something that at the end of the day will never satisfy gamers. We're here to talk about that, and we're here to talk about mostly whether it's important that gamers are happy with the adaptation or whether this is not for them at all. Well, now that the second episode of season 2 is out, I can officially say that I'm done with The Last of Us. And when I'm saying this, I'm not saying that I'm done, I'm not watching it anymore, as in I'm not caring about whether it's a good adaptation or not. I'm gonna take it as something that is not for the fans. I'm gonna take it as something that is there 100% to replace the game, to replace the same kind of feeling that we got from the game, a little bit less well done for people who actually don't play games. And the thing is, when I look at the best video game adaptations out there, let's talk about Fallout, for example, for which I have a video actually out there where I talk about why it's definitely even better than the game itself, or things even like the Super Mario Bros. Movie. That was a really good example. Castlevania, the TV show as well. There are a couple of examples. Let's not pretend that they don't really exist. And very often what they do is they actually improve on some of the game aspects, and we cannot really deny that. For example, the Fallout series was incredibly doing that. It kind of took all of the lore, all of the interesting characters and tidbits of information that you would find while you're walking around the world, and it turned it into something compelling. They put all of the right things together. I feel like those kind of games work really well as adaptations. And also that's probably why the Resident Evil games and films have never really worked together, because Resident Evil is once again a narrative focused game, kind of like The Last of Us as well.
Yeah, no shit, Sherlock.
Before I tell you about why I think that as gamers we should just stop caring about this adaptation, let's kind of sum up what I thought about the first season. First of all, I thought that the amount of episodes was just not good enough. I think it was 9 episodes. Originally it was 10, and I'm pretty sure the first and the second episodes were put together to have like an hour 30 of TV, which was fine, but I still thought that 9 episodes for such an incredible story was just not enough. If you just calculate the fact that you spend at least 3 times as much in the video game learning about these characters, being in this universe, to actually like care about all of these people, then you know that approximately 10 hours are not gonna be enough for a TV show, especially for like a zombie kind of TV show where you have so many different factions, so many different characters, so many different dynamics going on, and I feel like the series got that in some episodes. This is also why I think that the bottle episode is 100% one of the best episodes of the entire series, because it really kind of explored something that we didn't have time to explore in the video game, telling the stories through a different lens, which is something that we do actually in the second game, but we don't do it in the first game, where we get to tell the stories of all these survivors who are actually friends with Joel or Ellie. Really interesting scenes, for example, with one of the like B villains from the first few episodes. For example, it was played by the actress whose name I can't remember right now, but I think she's in in Yellow Jackets as well. Those are the kind of things that we don't really see in Last of Us Season 1, and that's why they worked. But I think the season was rushed way too much. I got to the final episodes and I actually really didn't care about what was happening because we didn't really spend enough time in this universe and I was not ready to leave it behind, basically. Actually, now that I think about it, if you look at The Walking Dead is one of those zombie apocalypse series where we've always complained about the mid-season finale kind of structure where we're leading towards something interesting and then we have to kind of rebuild the pathos and the tension to get to the later part of the season. I feel like that structure doesn't really work in the streaming era anymore. But one thing we can say about the Walking Dead universe is that every single thing that happened actually felt like it had stakes, and we cared about these people so deeply because we spent so much time with them, even doing the most mundane things. So even though I think that The Walking Dead overall is a series that definitely overstayed its welcome, we can agree on the fact that it's really good storytelling when it comes to world building, and that is something that The Last of Us Season 1 didn't do really well. And this is what I thought when it comes to that season. So knowing what I think about this, I hate how they rushed it. I hate how they didn't really take the time that they could take with a TV series to do this kind of stuff. At the end of the day, you go into the second season, a first episode where you're already meeting Abby. By the way, there's gonna be a lot of spoilers in this video, so if you've not seen the first 2 episodes of Season 2, maybe this is not gonna be for you at all. But if you're a gamer, if you've played the games, then you're definitely going to enjoy this video. Having said that, already in the first episode of second season, you can tell that they want to tell you exactly what the reasons are behind what Abby is going to do to Ellie. That is a main problem for me, because I was sitting there being like, so what is the mystery going to be about? Of course, this is an adaptation. They want to spice things up. They want to change things. But there are some things which are inherently part of what makes the second game so interesting to play. And one of them was the mystery of not knowing exactly why all of this was happening. And we have this problem that maybe we didn't feel as much in the first season, where there is not that much show don't tell. We have characters who are literally standing in front of the camera saying things that we all know, so many exposition dumps, and we have Abby, for example, clearly saying that she's gonna take her time to kill Joel. We know that as gamers, maybe you need to say it for the TV show audiences, but at the same time, you don't need to say it. You get it. You get it that something bad is going to happen if she's talking about getting her revenge, right? Even though the first 2 episodes were good when it came to setting up the new Joel and Ellie relationship, if there is something I can criticize about the game, it's the fact that I felt that they kind of rushed it. As in, I feel like he dies definitely a bit too early in the game, even though the rest of it is incredible when it comes to kind of dissecting what it means to actually go through a revenge spree. I feel like it's kind of one of those neo-Western films where you kind of trying to revisit the idea of why it's bad to get your own revenge, because at the end of the day, people are gonna come back at you, and it's kind of like a vicious circle of violence. So this is what the second game is all about, and that's why it was so popular and so controversial as well, because I feel like it was never done, or never done to this extent. The idea of getting you to empathize with someone who did something so incredibly mean to someone that you love. Having said that, I thought that they rushed it a little bit. They played a bit too much with the flashbacks and that kind of thing, especially when it came to Joel and Ellie's relationship. Having said that, we spent so much time in the first game developing that relationship that maybe if you play them back to back, it doesn't really shock you as much as if you're waiting for years and years and then you play that game again. But when you're watching the series, and as I said before, they rushed the first season, they rushed that relationship because they had so many things that they needed to introduce for the world building to work and for all the characters to be present for the second season, then you're sitting there being like, so you keeping them apart already, Joel and Ellie, even though they've not spent that much time together when you think about it. If you just look at the screen time, they might have spent maybe 6 or 8 hours together. So imagine seeing that and immediately kind of trying to recreate shot for shot everything that happens in the introduction of the game. And that's where I'm like, this is not a good adaptation. You needed to develop that struggle between Joel and Ellie a little bit more. This idea of people trying to force Joel Joel to say what he did back at the hospital when he's basically confronting his psychologist, his therapist. It just doesn't work. I feel like you're trying to kind of like force that resolution, you're trying to force that kind of like conception of what happened as fast as possible, because you know that at the end of second episode he's not gonna be there anymore. So you want to please the audience and make them feel like they got some kind of resolution when it comes to Joel's journey, even though it didn't really happen on screen, and I feel like it's a bit of a shame. Also, like those critiques of the fact that Joel kind of aged by almost 20 years instead of 4 between season 1 and season 2 are completely valid in my opinion, and I feel like the idea of like starting the second season with exactly what happened at the very end of season 1, a lot of people criticized it by being like, it almost seems like we were still stuck in the recap, as in they could have done differently. They could have done a montage of things that have happened, for example, in the last few years. I don't know, there are so many different storytelling techniques to actually make us care a little bit more about these characters so that we care about what is going on between them. And also you have to say that Pedro Pascal is an incredible actor, and it's a bit of a shame that they just disposed of him so fast, especially when they said that they were going to adapt the second game in 2 seasons. So I'm sitting there being like, so what are you going to adapt in these 2 seasons, right? Because if you rush his death so quickly in the first 2 episodes, it feels like you're literally getting to the end by the end of this season, right? So I don't know, I felt at least that they tricked us a little bit, where it felt like we're gonna spend a little bit more time between Joel and Ellie and develop that relationship, and maybe spend more time in the town as well, since they built the entire location, the entire set. And I don't know, I feel like that entire scene, for example, where it happens, I actually looked back at the video game and how they handled it, and it's really funny because it really feels like a shot-for-shot recreation of that scene in live action mode. And I'm not saying that positively, as in I feel like they should have taken it a bit differently. They should have surprised gamers as much as they surprised the audiences, and that's why I'm like, we need to look at this through a different lens. We need to stop caring about this so much as gamers, because it will never recreate the same experience. And even the moment where, for example, Joel is saying like, stop monologuing, shut the fuck up, like just get done with it. In the game, it felt like emotionally impactful. In the TV show, it felt just like he was literally looking at the camera, kind of like fourth breaking and being like, can you shut up and just do it already? Because we know all of this is really clear, and this is actually boring. The entire change of Abby's character, the fact that she's not really muscled anymore and that she's not really a threat, she doesn't really look like a villain in that particular scene, and overall, just in general, I feel like it's a misstep completely. You feel like there is no threat for Ellie later on if she's actually gonna go and get her revenge. It really feels like there are a bunch of raiders, and it happened to be a fact that she wanted to get her revenge as well. They just stumbled upon him. It didn't really feel like they prepared that much for it, and this came through the physicality of the actress. Of course, even though I really like Deborah as an actress, she's done incredible work, but this time around it felt like she was kind of like playing a character. It felt like the words that were coming out of her mouth were just like replaying things from the games instead of being true to her and to the character of Abby as well. And I never actually enjoyed Abby until you actually get to play her. And if you want an anecdote, for example, in the game, I actively tried to get her killed over and over and over again to kind of satisfy the itch at the back of my head, as if I was Ellie playing Abby. So I would love to kill her over and over again to punish her, you know? Just to say that I was in the same camp as most people. I hated playing Abby, but that made me love the game even more, because it's incredibly powerful the way that just by the fact that you're controlling someone, it makes you like understand them, empathize, relate to them so much more than when you're just watching them on TV. And when I was looking at that scene, I just didn't feel anything. Like I couldn't really empathize with the scene between Joel and Ellie. I wasn't really that scared for them either. The fact that they drugged Dina instead of like bashing her brains out like they did with Tommy, for example, in the game, felt a bit too easy. If there is one thing maybe they improved, is that it really feels a little bit more realistic, as in like the camera is looking around at all these people and you can tell that they're not really on Abby's side. They're there just because they want to support her, but at the end of the day, they don't want to commit atrocities in her name either. They're not complete and utter crazy people like they looked like in the game itself. Having said that, even the entire scene didn't feel as brutal as in the game. I don't know, it just felt like we didn't see enough of it. And there is this thing of like showing violence on screen. Is it useful? And for this scene, for a TV show like this, I feel like it would have been useful. I recently saw a horror film that you might know called called Opus, and there is a scene, for example, where these two characters are fighting each other and we don't see it. We just see basically the camera kind of like zooming out against basically the closed door, and you just hear them fighting and you don't really know exactly what's going on. And this is exactly this type of stuff that I hate about shooting these kind of scenes. You need to see the brutality so that you can actually relate to the vengeance, so you can actually want to do it yourself. That's how it felt in the game anyways, and that's not how it felt in the TV show at all. In the TV show I was like, oh, that happened, let's see where it goes next, I suppose. Everything else actually going on in Jackson was way more interesting. There were so many people online saying it was the best scene ever. It reminded them of the highlights of Game of Thrones, for example. Now sitting there being like, that's 100% true. I wished it was not going on at the same time as the Joel and Ellie thing, because it kind of made it feel less impactful and less important. So you know what I mean? I feel like we missed a little bit of that. I feel like the emotional impact of both things going on at the same time kind of lessened all of it at the same time. Having said that though, what did you think of the episode? Did you like it? At the end of the day, I feel like I need to lower my expectations way more, because I know this is just not for me. This is not for the gamers. This is not for people who actually experienced playing those characters with their own hands. This is a replacement for the story that was showcased in the games. And for me, that's a bit of a shame. I don't like when like adaptations do that, when they actually wanna like take away the experience of the game instead of like trying to enhance it, like they did for a couple of episodes in the first season, for example, where I was sitting there being like, this is fascinating, like I have no idea what is about to happen and I love it. Here it just feels like we're going through the step-by-step plot line of season 2 and I really don't get it. Having said that, I hope you enjoyed this video. Here at the bottom as usual, I'm gonna be linking the things that you should be interested in if you like this video as well. I'm gonna link you maybe to my previous Last of Us video if you enjoyed this one, and here at the top as usual you can see the video that I'm gonna be posting in the next few weeks. Having said that, don't forget to smash that like button. Every single time that you do that, you make sure that a clicker comes to one of your enemies' house and just bites them. Yeah, why not?
Can I count on you?
Let's get our shot of revenge in our veins, since we still haven't had our shot in the second season. I'm Patrick, and this is Torn Apart.
Back in the 90s, I was in a very famous TV show.
Da 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 da.